We are holding on the bottom. We are holding on the bottom of 22b4. Okay, we're literally holding if 22b4. We're in the last paragraph on the left column. Tonu Rabbanon, Chacham Shemes, a sage who passes away. Okay, you have it?
Got it.
Here we go. Okay, so here we go. And we're going to be done pretty quick because the next stop is not a long daf and it's not a hard one. It's, again, meaning in that it's just a continuation of what we've been discussing. So here we go. Tanu Rabbanan, Chacham Shemes Beis Midrash Batul. A sage that dies, his yeshiva stops for those, closes the doors for the next 7 days. It's Torah, but the answer is his students are like his children. So they too have to show a certain amount of mourning. That doesn't mean they stop learning. It means they stop learning in the normal way, the abnormal everyday way. So the Gemara goes further. Av Bezdin, the head of the Bezdin, the head of the court in any city. All the houses of study in the city cease their session. So not just a Rosh Yeshiva of a specific yeshiva, but if it's the Rosh Bezdin. So for an example, a Rav, like in the old home, in the Altaheim in Europe, where one rabbi was appointed the Rav of the entire city. There was a chief rabbi of every city who doubled. In order to be the Rav, the chief rabbi, he also had to be the Rosh Av Bezdin, the head, the father of the court. When he passed away, if he passed away, the entire city shut itself down and mourned. Because in essence, they lost their father, their head. Mm-hmm. Okay? Now, unichtis in the Beis HaKnesses u'mishanin es mekaymen. And they entered to pray in the shuls, but they changed their regular places. So you should know that's what we do today. If one loses a father or a mother, heaven forbid, you don't sit in your regular seat in the shul. You move around. For the year that you're sitting in mourning, you don't sit in your regular makam kavua, in your regular place. Those who sat in the north now sit in the south. The ones who sat in the south now sit in the north. The point is to put yourself as if you were in Golus, the wandering Jew, not comfortable, because you lost your base. You lost the foundation of your life. Nasi Shemes, if the Nasi dies, we talked about this yesterday, all houses of study, all yeshivas everywhere stop. Ubate Knesses, nichten the basic Knesses, and those people of the shul enter the shul. Okay, those who normally daven in the shul. We're on today's daf. We are now on 23A1, Chav Gimel Amud Aleph. V'kairin Shiva v'yotzen. And they have 7 people read from the Torah on the Shabbos. In other words, they lane from the Shabbos, the regular parsha that we lane, like this week, Parshas Truma, and then they leave the shul. So they do not daven b'minyan. They only come together to pull the Sefer Torah out of the Aron HaKodesh, put it on the bima, and read from the Sefer Torah. The rule is, one can pray. It's better to pray with a community, with a quorum, with a minyan, but you can pray by yourself, be yechidi, in your house. You cannot read from the Sefer Torah on your own. We do not pull out a Sefer Torah and open it up with less than 10 people. Okay? And this is where you see it. Rabbi Yeshua ben Karcha Amar, Rabbi Yeshua ben Karcha says, Lo yish isha ya'elchu v'atelu b'shuk el yoshim v'doimim. They should not go and simply stroll in the streets. They should sit at home and be silent and brood. Ve'ein oimrim shemua v'agadah to bebeis ha'evel, and they should not discuss things of learning in the house of mourning, even though, again, this is not a father and a mother, so theoretically they're allowed to learn. Nonetheless, do not in the house of mourning. Amar Allah Rabbi Chanina ben Gamliel. However, they said about Rabbi Chananya ben Gamliel that he used to say discourses of Allah and Agadah in the house of mourning. Okay, this was on Shabbos, and the reason for this is because Rabbi Chananya ben Gamliel was from Judea. There was an argument. The Judeans said there is no Avelis at all on Shabbos. Those from the Galilee, like Tiberia, held it was Avelis even on Shabbos, just not publicly but privately. So he held, therefore, on Shabbos you were allowed to learn, while others held that in Shabbos you were not allowed to learn publicly, only privately. And we're going to see this coming up shortly. Tanu Rabbanan, Avel Shabbos Rishona, Eini Yotza Mi Pesach Beisai. A mourner does not go out of his house the first week of mourning. Okay? Shania, the second week, Yotza Eini Yoshev B'Mekayma. He goes out, but he does not sit in his regular place in the shul. Shalishi Yoshev B'Mekayma Ve'eina Medaber. The third week, he's allowed to sit in his regular place, but he's not allowed to speak. Okay? He sits quietly and talks a lot less than he used to. Don't be the center of attention. By the fourth week, he's like everybody else. You didn't need to say that the first week you're not allowed to leave your home. Because everybody's coming to him to console him. Well, you can't console a person if he's not home. So in other words, be a mensch and stay put so people could come in and console you. The second week he doesn't go out of his house. The third week he can go out of his house but not sit in his regular place in the shul. In the fourth week he may sit in his regular place but not speak. Okay, Tanu Rabbanan. Kol shloishim yom l'nisuin. A mourner is subject all 30 days of his shloishim to the marriage restrictions. He's not allowed to get married for 30 days. Mesa ishtai, if it was his wife that died. Also Lisa isha acheres, ad shivri alola sholish regalim. It's forbidden for him to marry another wife, to take a new wife, until the 3 Yom Tovim have passed. Sukkot, Pesach, Shavuos, Sukkot. It doesn't have to be in order. By the way, we're on 23A2. 23A2. It doesn't have to be in order, but 3 Yom Tovim have to pay. Why? Because it shouldn't look like you're just doing away with your first wife. It shouldn't look like you're just doing away with your first wife, that you didn't care. Okay? However, of course, there are different rules. Rabbi Yehuda, Regel Rishayna V'Sheni Yasser, the first and second Yontifs have passed. Before they have passed, it's also for him to remarry. Shalishi Mutter, by the time you get to the third, it's already, he doesn't actually have to have the third festival, the third Yontif. It's already permitted for him to remarry. But, if he does not have any children, then he's allowed to marry immediately, Mishum Bittul Piririvya, on account of Piririvya. Now, interesting, just to show you on a lumdish way, Jeff, how you can learn this Gemara. Somebody doesn't have children, there's a mitzvah min HaTorah to have children, right? Piririvya. Good. Who said you have to be married to have children? Think about that. So from here we see something very interesting. What do we call marriage? Kiddushin. What does Kiddushin mean? Holiness. Does it actually mean the word marriage? It means kadosh, holy. Kiddushin, bringing holiness together. Says the Hamakne, who was also known as the Afla, the rabbi of the one of the teachers of the great Chassam Sofer, writes in the Sefer Makdim Meseches Kedushin that actually marriage is really not a mitzvah. Marriage is the hechsher mitzvah, the preparatory mitzvah to having children. Because we hold, when we say that the Torah says you have to have children, it means you have to have children in holiness, in matrimony. To have holiness outside of matrimony is to say that the children are flawed. And if the children are flawed, you have not fulfilled your mitzvah, as far as I can tell. Which is the reason why, if you take a look over here, because you're being mevatel, you're ceasing from the obligation of being fruitful and multiplying. If she left him with small children who need a mother's care, he's allowed to marry right away, so she should have a wife that could take care of the children. That the wife of Yosef HaKohen died, and he turned to her unmarried sister in the cemetery. One is not allowed to marry two sisters, but if his wife dies and the sister is still unmarried, he's allowed to marry her. Go and care for your sister's children. In other words, marry me. Nonetheless, he didn't have relations with her until a long time afterwards. What is a long time? Until after 30 days. Here too, you see so much going on over here. Number one, the most important thing is roles. Imagine saying this in the 21st century. Well, I got to get remarried because I need a woman to take care of the kids. Today, they'll shoot you down. Watch. Just because you're a man, you can't take care of the kids. The Gemara understood, the Torah understood, that men and women are equal, but play different roles in life and society, and together create a whole. Each brings a certain strength. Okay. Hey, Jeff, I'm back. Can you hear me?
Got it. I hear you.
Yeah, sorry. What happens is if I get a phone call in the middle,
Right.
it blinks out. So just hang on 1 second. I'm losing you here again. Hold on. No good. There we go. Okay. Here we go. Okay. Well, there we go. I'm charging the phone at the same time that we're talking. That's what's going on here. Okay, so if I'm a little crooked, sorry about that.
No, you're perfect.
Okay, there we go. Anyway, so where was I? So the most important thing here is to recognize roles matter. We understand perfectly that, of course, in your average situation, a woman is much greater, has greater empathy, has greater intuition, is more philosophically geared to raising children. We say in the famous pasuk, "Shema b'ni, hear my son, Shema b'ni musar avicha," the musar, the admonitions of your father. V'al titaish, and don't forget Torah simecha, the Torah of your mother, because it's the mother that teaches. We all understand this, except in today's world, where the roles are getting all messed up. And in the roles getting all messed up, the society as a whole is getting more messed up. Has not made society better or more stable. On the contrary, it has made society less stable. There are more divorces today than there ever was in the history of the world. There are more kids being born out of wedlock today than in marriage. Why is that? Because the roles are messed up. Look over here. If somebody is left over with little children, get married. Because you need a woman to take care of those kids. Because you taking care of the kids isn't going to turn out very well. The Gemara doesn't even go into it any depth. It takes it as a given. It's understood. That's not your strength. Go find the strengths. Create what do you call marriage is a partnership. Each person brings, there are people that work in the front and there are people who work in the back office. We all know that the front of the store is more sexy than the back of the store. But without the back of the store, you don't have a front of the store. In fact, we all know if you don't run a back office correctly, you're not going to have a front office. That's the way it always is. Or as the famous song goes, wind beneath my wings, because that's the way it works. So anyways, you can see this from this Gemara right here, literally. Anyways, further we go. Tanu Rabbanan. Hi, Daddy. We're holding 23A2. 23A2. Aleph on the bottom.
On the bottom of Amud Aleph?
Yeah, bottom of Amud Aleph. We're up to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 lines from the bottom. Okay, we're moving along. Today's daf is an easy daf. We just talked about the fact that if somebody has little children, he should get married right away. And that's because
even in the cemetery.
What? Even in the
cemetery.
And the reason for that is because the Torah understood that everybody has roles.
Right.
There are strengths that women bring to the table that men cannot do. Right? Today, in today's worlds where the roles are all messed up, society is a mess. Society is not better off today when the roles have gotten blurred. In fact, more kids are born out of wedlock. There are more divorces. Society is crumbling because all of a sudden you don't take
more divorces. There's no marriages. It's all boyfriend, girlfriend.
What I'm saying today, more children are being born out of wedlock than in wedlock. That's the fact. And why? Because roles. It's not that people are not equal. On the contrary, everybody's equal. But the point of it is that each one brings a strength that the other one doesn't have, and together you create one whole. Tanu Rabbanan. Kol shloishim yom legihuts. Right? A mourner is subject all 30 days of his shloishim to the pressing restrictions. In other words, don't wear pressed clothes. Echad kelim chadoshim, ve'echad kelim yishen, whether it's old clothes or new clothes, yoitzim mitoich hakevesh, that come out of the press. They used to have these things where you would press it in their houses. A board. Don't use it. Rabbi Yomi, lo yasu el kelim chadoshim bulvad. Rabbi, only new clothing shouldn't have it, because old clothing, they're old already. Stop worrying about it. Rabbi Elazar of Shimon Yomi, lo yamru el kelim chadoshim lebenim. Only white clothing. Colored clothing, it's not a big deal if it's pressed. White clothing is a big deal because you can see the lines. Abayo nafka begardo de sarbalo. Abayo went out and shloishim wearing a tesseled coat. Okay? A tesseled coat. I mean, a fur-lined coat. And he combed it so that it should look new. He combed it so that it wasn't disheveled. He combed it that it was smooth. Ki Rebbe, like the Shita of Rebbe, who said that they only assered new clothing, but old clothing could be pressed to make it look new. Rava Nogdik Bichimutzta Remisa Sumakta Chadati. Rava went out on the Shloishim in a Roman tunic that was red and new.
You remember?
Shimon, He went to because Rabbi Shimon said only new clothing that are white can't be pressed, but anything else. Now, my father was about to say about the color red. Go ahead.
Remember when we were discussing, some people say you shouldn't wear a blue shirt because it's no good for shidduch. And I used to tell you, Rova used to go out with a red tunic made in Rome. So if Rova, the Godel Ador, can go with a red sport jacket, I could go with a blue shirt.
Let me tell you even further, Daddy.
That's the Gemara.
He went out with a red coat made in Rome. You know what that is? A cardinal's. He went out looking like a cardinal.
Oh yeah, but they didn't have it in those days. They didn't. Oh, they had.
Yeah. What color does the cardinal wear?
Red.
They wear red. They get a red hat, right? They get a red hat and a red bekisha. And what did Rava go out in? Roman. It goes out of its way to tell you. Roman tunic, red and new. Because the greats of Rome walked around in red. The Hasidim dressed like who? The Hasidim dressed like the Cossacks. Right? That's exactly right. We guys dress on Shabbos looking like Armeni suits, like sharp Italians, right? We look sharper than the Italians themselves, right? Where did the fedora come from? Fedora also came from Italy.
Yeah.
It's called a fedora.
That's right.
So all we do is take their stuff. If you think about this Gemara, he was dressed as a cardinal. That's exactly right. So, Daddy, in other words, the zeitgeist of any period of time has to be ignored. Daddy, wait until you listen to my part that I sent you last night that I got to send out. It's very long this week. It's 11 minutes, unfortunately.
Yeah, listen after
but it's exactly on this topic.
Oh, okay.
That the Torah is unchanged and we don't follow the winds of every generation and the thing. And that's what the Parsha is coming to talk about. So
that was the Gemara that I was quoting about with Rova.
Yeah. And it's Rava who shows up every 3 dafim in Shas. You bang into Rava and Abai.
Right.
So here we go. Let's finish up. Because they said that Shabbos is included in the day of mourning and does not cut it short. Now we're going to get to, Jeff, this is the argument I was talking to you about earlier about the Judeans versus the Galileans. The Judeans held that Shabbos has no rules of mourning, even privately. The Galileans held it privately, you're supposed to hold some rules of mourning even on Shabbos. So B'nai Yehuda, B'nai Galila, the people from Yehuda, from Judea, and B'nai Galila, those from Galilee, Tiberia, from Tiberias. Hani Amri, these said, and now we're on Amid Beis. We are on Amid Beis, so 23b1. Yesh Avelos Shabbos. There is observing mourning of the Shabbos privately. This is the Galileans. The Chani Amri and the ones from Judea said, Ein Avelis b'Shabbos. Even privately, there's no observance of mourning on the Shabbos. The ones that say there is private mourning of the Shabbos, Diktani Oila, because it says the Shabbos is included in the days of mourning. And that's what we hold, that one of the 7 days, one of the days of Shiva is the Shabbos. We don't sit for 8 days, we sit for 7 days. Learns it out that it does not cut short the days of mourning. Meaning, it said like this, it's not, what do you call it? It's counted and it doesn't cut short, which is like a double lashon. So by the lashon that you're telling me that it doesn't cut short, it means even though there is no mourning, it doesn't cut short the 7 days, it's only 6. So Because if you would think that there is an observance of mourning privately on the Shabbos, why would you have to make this statement? And it doesn't cut off, it doesn't cut short the mourning. Now that it is telling me that the mourning applies even on the Shabbos, you have to say anything. The Mishnah doesn't say anything about cutting short. Not Elamai. There is no mourning on Shabbos, and still the day does not cut short. You don't sit 8 days; you only sit 7 days. But it does say the first part of the language of this Mishnah is that the Shabbos is included in the day of mourning. How did the Judeans who say that Shabbos there is no mourning? So they said it's only a editing situation. Since the Tana wanted to tell us the last part of the Mishnah that the Yom Tovim on Yom Tov are not included in the days of mourning. Therefore, they said that Shabbos is included in the day of mourning, but don't go out of your way to go ahead and darshan from it. And according to the ones who say there is private mourning on Shabbos, why does the Mishnah tell us then that the Shabbos does not cut short the mourning period? It's obvious. Because when regarding Yontif, on the holidays, not only is there no mourning on the Yontif, but in fact, Yontif cuts off Avelus. That's it. There is no mourning anymore. But don't learn anything into it. It's merely a way of balancing the language of the Mishnah.
Symmetry.
It's an editing. The editor added it in. Very good. Says the Gemara, the fact whether the Shabbos there's private mourning or not, should we say that in reality it's a machlokes tanoim, it's a dispute among the tanoim? Because we learned in a Braisa, one who has a relative that's lying in front of him that needs burial. He should eat in another house. If he doesn't have another house, he should eat in the house of his friend. If he doesn't have a friend, he should make a partition 10 handbreadths high to separate him from the deceased. By the way, stam mechitza is how much?
10
tevachim. So if you go to a shul, that's mechitza is only 10 tevachim high. So you can see right over the top into the women's section. Can you daven there? Yes, you can. Yes,
but will you be distracted? Yes, you can. Yes, you will.
Yes, you will, but you can still daven there. In fact, famously, the shul in the Hamptons has a 10 handbreadth mechitza, which is also using lavud and good asik, is using every it. It's only made out of slats. And la halacha, it's still good.
So you don't see the women because it's good it's lavud.
No, trust me, Wendy, you most certainly can. You can speak to Philip, who has davened in that shul, because his son-in-law Leah has davened in that shul. So, and I know that because I was there once and met Lee there. Anyway, so there we go. Lema kitanoi. Maybe so we said, Mei shebeisen mutalafana. Makes a partition 10 handbreadths high. He has nothing to make the partition. He should turn his head away from the deceased and then eat. He shouldn't lean, he shouldn't recline while eating. They used to eat on couches and recline. We're on 23b2. And he should not eat meat and not drink wine, because that brings joy.
I asked your Uncle Philip, what is he going to do with that?
Right? So you know the answer.
You can't have a meal without wine.
Without wine, correct. And he does not recite a blessing. That means he does not cite the rabbinical blessings that we make before we eat. And biblically, okay, he does not biblically He does not say Birchas Hamazon benching after eating. The aim mevarchen olav, and others do not be mitzi him with Shemea Ka'ina. Others do not say benching out loud, so he should at least hear it. No, because if the dead is in front of you and not buried yet, you're potter min mitzvahs. The ain mizamin olav, since he's not obligated in making this, he cannot be part of the zimun. He can't be part of Rabbi Sai Mevarach, Rabbi Sai Mevarach benching that we do before the benching. Upotter mikriya shema minat tefillah, and he's exempt from shema and tefillah uminat tefillin, and from putting on tefillin umikol mitzvahs amura b'Torah, and from all mitzvahs that are said in the Torah. This actually is a big question. Why did any of this has to be said? If madach, benching you don't have to do, which is a diaraisa, well then obviously putting on tefillin, saying krishma or davening, you don't have to do.
But tefillin is a
diaraisa.
What?
Yeah, but daddy, when you eat bread, do you have to bench?
Yeah.
Good. Tefillin. If you don't put on tefillin, all you were was mevatel the mitzvah's tefillin. There's no chiyuv.
And it's at Minat Torah.
Yeah. So benching is also minat Torah.
Right.
If I already told you benching, why do I have to tell you the others?
One has nothing to do with the other.
Look at it. Look at the way it says it over here. Upotter, and he's exempt. Just say
mikol mitzvahs. That's it.
That's all you have to say.
Yeah.
It's a little hard to understand this, to be true to the matter. It's not so simple to understand this.
Because we're so used to put on film and to make a brocha.
Right. But
it's very difficult to.
And I'll tell you something else, Daddy. What's the word over there? It says upater. He's exempt. Is he exempt? Or is he in fact doesn't have the mitzvah at all? Exempt means I actually have the mitzvah, but I'm potter. I don't have to do it.
But if you want to do it, you could do it.
But if you want to, you could do it and you get reward for it.
Yeah, I'm not
but
sure.
If I'm an einan, it's not pshat that I'm potter. It's pshat I don't even have the mitzvahs. Period. There is no mitzvah. And I'm right about that because you can't do zimun. Why can't he do zimun? Because you have no obligation to bench, so you can't be part of the zimun. But if you're potter, you're exempt. It means I do have the mitzvah. I'm just exempt for it because I have the dead in front of me. But if I want to, I'm allowed to, which would mean that I'm allowed to join a zimun. But I'm not allowed to join a zimun. So therefore, what's pshat in this Gemara? I actually don't know. So I've got two more questions than I got answers right here, right now. To me, this is the Gemara is, the language of the Gemara is somewhat, and we have this Gemara is a pretty famous Gemara, but the language is hard to understand, and I'm sure that there's
what the Gemara is saying is that you have to be focused only on the mess, not to be distracted by something else.
100%. But the language of the Gemara is somewhat interesting. But on Shabbos, and this is the reason why we're bringing this, Shabbos, when the burial cannot take place and the body is actually muksa, Mesa v'oichel, you can recline while eating. V'oichel basa v'shoyse yayin u'mevarech u'mezame, and he has to say the brachas before eating and the benching afterwards. U'mevarech u'mezame olav, and others can be mitzi him when these stuff. V'chayev b'kriyas shema tefillah u'b'tefillin. Take out the word u'b'tefillin because Shabbos is not zaman tefillin unless you hold. Tefillin is temidus. Tefillin is 24 hours, 7 days a week. Theoretically, you could wear tefillin, but you don't wear tefillin on Shabbos only because Shema Yavirenu Dalet Amos, because you might carry the tefillin for Amos in the Rishus HaRabim, which means that there really is a chiyuv of tefillin It's just the side reason we don't wear tefillin on Shabbos, right?
No.
So it
No,
could be that.
because it says Shabbos is an ois. Oisi,
I
and
agree.
the tefillin is an ois. You cannot mix one with the other.
True. But there is a Mandi Amma that does say that tefillin is mechuyev on
Yeah.
Shabbos, and we
Right.
don't do it because of Shema Yaviredu Dalet Abbas. So
Right.
theoretically, that could be what the shot in this Gemara is.
Could be.
Ubechol mitzvahs amura b'Torah, and all the mitzvahs that says in the Torah. I'm just
By
telling
the-
you that this,
By the way, even though you're allowed to eat and make in bench, but the issue of not doing it in the same room as the mess, that stays.
that stays. And besides the
Right.
point, one would think that that would be a very difficult meal if the dead person is lying there in the room. What are you going to do? Dress the dead person up in a Shabbos suit and put on a tie and set him
No,
up?
the mess is in a casket,
Okay, thank you. Well, thank you. Still, Daddy, it's actually that is not true. If a mace dies on Shabbos, it's muksa. You put it on the floor and that's it.
You
Unless
cover
you're
it.
in Florida.
You cover
Unless
it
you're in Florida.
with a blanket.
With a blanket. That's it.
Sheet. Yeah.
Unless you're in Florida, as we learned last year. My mother was nipped Friday night. Florida is too hot. You can't keep a body in the house overnight in Florida.
Right.
Okay. So now, Rabbi Gamliel says, since he's obligated in these mitzvahs on Shabbos, he's obligated on all of them on the Shabbos. Okay? And it's certainly on the weekdays, right? Okay.
Do you get an aliyah in shul?
That is a very good question. You probably do not because you don't have to.
Right.
You don't have to. It's not something they should be giving you. Logically, that's me just talking logically.
Yeah, I agree.
Va'amar Rabbi Yochanan, says Rabbi Yochanan, Tashmish Amita Ikabineyu. Having relations with your wife is the difference between them. According to the Mandiyama, that says there is some Abelis on Shabbos, do not have relations. According to the other one, you're allowed to have relations. Ma'ala b'hakim ifligi. The Marsa.
Really bothers me, and I tell you the truth. Yeah, you're an oinen, right? Your mess is there. You're not even buried, and you're having relation with your wife.
So the answer becomes because
Something
Friday night
doesn't sound right.
Because Friday night is a mitzvah. Simple. That's the answer. So that's the answer. But my lab, this is exactly what we're about to say. My lab, the Mar Saba Yesh Abelis B'Shabbos. There is Abelis on Shabbos. There's mourning on the Shabbos, and therefore don't have relations. Umar Saba ain't Abelis B'Shabbos, and therefore if there's no Abelis B'Shabbos, your chiyuv of Tashmish Friday night is automatically here, and therefore you have the mitzvahs in front of you. Don't let the mitzvah pass you by. Mimai, what are we talking about? Just saying anything, like my father just said. The mace is in front of you. It's impossible. How can you have relations when the mace is in front of you? But in a case where the mace is not in front of you, he won't have any problems. Go ahead and have relations with your wife. There's no mourning yet affecting on you. All you are is an oining, right? Avelis didn't start yet, so therefore there's no reason to be mevatel the mitzvah. But here in the case where the mourning obligation has already taken effect upon the burial of the deceased, Hachanami, he would agree that you can't do tashmish. Okay, we are now on to Shabbos's daf. Okay, so now this is where we're going to stop. We are literally on the top of Chavdalin Amid Aleph. So let's make up where we're going to meet up on Sunday. So we're on 24A1. We're going to go all the way to 24B3. Chavdalin Amid Beis, there is a Mishnah, literally the second to last line On 24B3, there is a
Right,
mission.